Well, my friend Tom Soter is gone. It's probably the last time I'll be in his home, and it's quite a home. Uh, just being in this room is like a magical mystery tour of his life. I was drawn to this photograph of Tom on the wall over here. He's about 8 or 9 years old there, and that was the age that we got together on the basis of having similar names. We were both named Tom, and our last names both began with S. And we became friends, formed a club called the Soter Sinclair Club, and we got into all the same things. I mean, I don't know if we would have gotten into the same things if we'd never gotten together, but somehow we grew to love comics, particularly Marvels. We were Marvel snobs. And if you look around, you'll find a lot of Marvel things. There's Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. there. Let's see. Well, let's go take a look at the Stan Lee memorial. Okay, I don't know how good you guys can see, but Stan Lee, the creator of Marvel. And here's a letter that Tom wrote to Stan. This was in 1987 in response to an article in the Village Voice that said that Stan had treated Jack Kirby badly and ripped off a lot of ideas from him, so forth and so on. Soter wrote this letter to Stan saying how hurt he was and disappointed in Stan. Stan wrote back in just printing on the bottom of his letter, "No time for a letter now, Tom, but I swear by Thor's hammer, not even 1/100th of it is true. Excelsior, Stan." In later years, I got to interview Stan Lee at his home in Santa Monica, and I actually got this little piece on a piece of Hulk stationery that Stan wrote another little message to Tom saying, "Honest, Tom, I really liked Jack Kirby. Don't go away mad, Stan Lee." That meant a lot to Tom, both letters, and meant a lot to me to get him that second one. We also were big Sherlock Holmes fans. Here's a Holmes bust. More Holmes. Oh, here's, speaking of Marvel, here's a Marvel poster here. 75 years of Marvel. James Bond, well, we're also big James Bond fans, and there's quite a bit of Bond memorabilia in this room. Tom was big on posters and statues and sculptures and all sorts of things. There's a little statuette of Iron Man over there. Up there's a bust of Mr. Spock. Below that, W.C. Fields, Laurel and Hardy. Tom was very eclectic in his tastes, you know. And he was a collector. He was a true collector and archivist, you know. And he left a ton of stuff. It's amazing. Also, speaking of the early days, Tom was very into Daniel Boone, Fess Parker. He had a Daniel Boone lunchbox, which he saved from 3rd or 4th grade. Also up there's a Beatles lunchbox. That's certainly vintage. And a Man from U.N.C.L.E. lunchbox. So these are all the types of things you might see on eBay selling for ridiculous prices, but you know, Tom just kept them, and you know, he never would have dreamt of selling them. I'm certain of that, you know. Tom's books, in every room he has books, you know. Here's just one shelf of stuff here. He has a lot in his bedroom. One of the big writers we were into was Edgar Rice Burroughs, and we both collected all the Edgar Rice Burroughs books in paperback. That was, you know, the Tarzan series. John Carter of Mars, the Pellucidar series, the Venus series, and on and on and on. And Tom continued to love Edgar Rice Burroughs even to the end. I remember just a few months ago, he showed me he bought a special edition of A Princess of Mars, I believe it was. And he told me he paid $125 for it. So he was always, he was not shy about spending his money for things that he liked. In the other room, there are thousands of old comics from the Marvel Silver Age, which was the best age ever, from 1963 to 1972 or so. He collected just about everything, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Sergeant Fury, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Iron Man, Daredevil, Submariner, Spider-Man. As I say, we were Marvel maniacs, Mm-hmm. And over here, actually, there's a nice little funny Holmes sculpture, sort of a caricature, and Holmes with sunglasses. I think Tom added those, just as sort of a joke. I mean, there's just so much stuff packed into this room, and it all screams Tom Soter, And I'm taking one sculpture to remember him by, and it's a little warthog. And why am I taking it? Because I used to write about a character called the Warthog in magazines that Tom would publish, and they were later collected in a book. And Tom, at some point got this Warthog, and Alan suggested, our good friend Alan Saley, that I might want to take this to remember Tom by, and I can't think of anything more appropriate, And I just want to say, as I said, this might be my last time in this house. I want to say goodbye, Tom. I'll miss you, man, but I'll always have a lot of great memories of our time together. We had a lot of fun. I told my wife recently that, some of my best memories of my childhood were hanging out with Tom Soter, doing the stuff we did, making the tape recorded shows, doing the magazines, movies, etc., 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 And those days are gone, but not forgotten. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Chris Doherty. Tom Soter was my best friend, one of my best friends, and I'm sitting in his apartment, looking over the memorabilia he has, and it's a vast collection of memorabilia he has, and but it's wonderful. They bring back wonderful memories for me, and I remember, he was a great Daniel Boone fan, and my mother was friends with a woman who worked at NBC, and I got a Daniel Boone record album. I think Fess Parker singing country songs, and my mother got the record for me, and I was in the park, I remember, and we were just getting to know each other, and Tom chased me through the park asking for the record, for me to give him the record. And I at first reneged on giving him the record because I wanted to have the record, and I was a Daniel Boone fan too, And so what happened was, finally, after his repeated invitations for the record, I gave him the record, and we were best friends after that, and the rest is history, as just Philo Wheaton said. But I always remember Tom Soter as being my best friend. He was my buddy, and we did movies together, we did tape shows together, we wrote magazines together. We brought out the creativity in me. I remember I was inspired to start my own magazine, The Psychedelic Eye, and write for it. And he brought out the writer in me, and I love literature to this day. And I always respect him as being a great writer. And all I can say is that I'll miss him greatly, and that he was my best buddy, really. And I had fun at his house with George and Effie and Peter and Nick, and we all grew up together. And that when you grow up together, it's something special in a young boy's mind. And I thank you, Tom, for those inspiring ways to live. And now you're with the stars. Good luck, fella.
Greetings, I'm Alan Saley, and I'm proud and humbled to be here in Tom's house. Tom was a generous, kind, principled friend. Yeah, this house really brings back a lot of memories. Tom and I shared a lot of interests. Like, for example, photography. Tom's old Pentax is here, and I remember how we used to compare notes. Tom took pictures for the high school yearbook with this camera back in 11th grade, and I took pictures too. Between Tom and me, I think we took most of the pictures of graduating class seniors. So Tom and I we were very interested in writing. We loved literature, and we loved a lot of the same writers. We loved Edgar Rice Burroughs especially, and some science fiction authors. I turned Tom on to some writers like Jack Williamson, and he turned me on to some writers like Earl Stanley Gardner. We also really were into the same TV shows. We were into Ironside, The Prisoner, Secret Agent, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Outer Limits. Pardon me. Although, our interests were not identical. I think that, sometimes, though, friends profit a lot by one friend introduces a friend to something they might not have been interested in, and gets them interested in something. Like Tom was very interested in John Christopher, really liked him as a writer. And I guess I thought it was sort of too realistic, but as time went on, I really started to like John Christopher, and I turned Tom on to The Humanoids by Jack Williamson, I remember, and some other science fiction writers that he grew to really like. I've just spent so much time in this house with Mr. Soter, and I will say that Tom always was very charitable. I think he maybe inherited this from his Greek heritage, his family. Anytime you were here, he'd always offer you something to eat, something to drink. He'd always be very concerned, solicitous, are you okay? Can I give you some food? That was a very sweet thing about Tom. It's funny, I have all these flashbacks of being with Tom in the 11th grade and 10th grade, and going way back, working on the yearbook, working on our movies, running around in Central Park, running around in Riverside Park, hanging out with our friends Chris and Tom Sinclair, doing our movies together. So it's just been, it's kind of been a sad and somber, summer, really, in 2020 because of Tom's passing, I must say. So there's so much here, like I think that Tom Sinclair said, this place just breathes Tom Soter. And not to repeat myself, Tom and I shared a love of photography, and he took some really cool pictures, I think he took this one here. Actually, no, he didn't take that one. That's somebody else, but that's sort of a nice aesthetic that Tom and I really like black and white, simple images, cityscape, bottles on a windowsill. And actually, this is, show you another picture. I think this is, the top picture that Tom was most proud of, to tell you the truth. This picture right here of cypress trees in Greece. He took this picture, and it's really beautiful. It's got a real beautiful composition. I think it's very evocative, and it brings you into the classical times, right? Like Greece, Rome. It's something special about that photo. This picture also, Tom took of Stonehenge when Tom went to England, and that is also, you know, to borrow a too frequently used word, iconic picture of something ancient. So, and there, of course, is another picture Tom loved. This picture of the two cats. That's two cats on a windowsill, I think in Brooklyn, when Tom was briefly living in Brooklyn. And so, you know, Tom, it's kind of interesting that even though Tom was so focused on people, he kind of had a love of photography that really was not personal. Like that's another picture he took of cypress trees or conifers of some sort, and I believe that's in Rome. I think that's maybe the Roman Forum. So Tom was really a multifaceted man with a lot of depth, and I will miss him greatly.